Regarding Alex Eala, Roger Federer has revealed something shocking that no one had anticipated. Social media was rocked by the tennis superstar's revelations, which split fans and set the internet on fire. What was it he said? And why is the young Filipino celebrity generating more conversation than ever before? This goes beyond a simple endorsement or remark. This is more profound and alters our perception of one of tennis's up-and-coming talents. Federer went there, which no one had anticipated. The world is now looking for solutions. It took place in Basel during a press conference. The man who stays out of the spotlight, Roger Federer, was questioned about the direction of women's tennis. After a moment of hesitation and a smile, he said something that would make headlines for days. He brought up Alex Eala, but not in the way you might anticipate or with the kind words of appreciation typically given to up-and-coming artists.
His voice changed.
His voice carried anxiety, disappointment perhaps. Federer started by saying, "Alex Eala is extremely talented. However, I question whether she is actually playing her own game anymore." There was silence in the room. Journalists looked at each other. By that, what did he mean? Federer went on, picking his words well, yet purposefully. He discussed the demands placed on young athletes, the sponsorship structures that envelop them, and the federations who view them more like investments than like people. Then he uttered the words that would spark the internet. Those who are meant to safeguard these players occasionally wind up taking control of them. Additionally, I'm concerned about what I've heard about Alex's circumstances. He didn't go into detail. He didn't have to. The inference was obvious. In Alex Eala's career, something was going on behind the scenes. Something that was unknown to the general population. Even Roger Federer, who is renowned for avoiding drama, felt obliged to address this issue. The damage, or the truth, depending on who you ask, was already known before the news conference ended. The video became viral in a matter of hours, and Twitter blew up. Speculation filled Reddit posts. YouTube channels rushed to dissect Federer's every word. Everyone was asking the same straightforward but loaded question. What is the sinister secret of Alex Eala? This was the last thing a young player who was still attempting to make a name for herself on the WTA tour needed. However, this was too big of a story for the tennis community to overlook. Everyone was curious to find out what was behind the door that Federer had opened. However, we must go back to the beginning of Alex Eala's narrative in order to comprehend why Federer's remarks struck such a chord. Alex Eala is more than just a tennis player. The first Filipino to win a Grand Slam championship. Even if it was as a junior, she is a national hero and the pride of the Philippines. Her victory in the girls' singles at the 2022 U.S. Open was more than just a personal accomplishment. The nation as a whole, which had waited for decades for a tennis star to call it home, celebrated the moment together. Born in 2005, Eala was a talent from the start. Her parents made a choice that would influence her entire life after realizing her talent at a young age. She was sent to Spain to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy when she was just 11 years old. 11. The majority of children at that age are adjusting to middle school. Before she even reached puberty, Alex was already living the life of a professional athlete, grinding on clay courts far from her family. Her skills were refined by the academy. She rose through the ranks, took home junior trophies, and established herself as the face of Filipino tennis. However, there was a price. Expectations were present in every interview, press conference held after game, and sponsorship agreement. She wasn't just being selfish. She was playing for an entire nation. And you change under that type of strain. By the time she turned pro, Eala had already spent more time under the spotlight than most players experience in their entire careers. She had agreements with well-known companies. A federation made significant investments in her success. Each of her managers, coaches, and agents had their own goals. She no longer lived her own life. The brand was meticulously maintained. From the outside, it looked perfect. A young, talented, marketable star on the rise. But insiders whispered, they always do. There were rumors about tensions with her team, stories about sponsorship obligations that dictated her schedule, whispers that she wasn't the one making decisions about her career anymore. And then Federer said what many had been thinking, but no one dared to say out loud. Alex Eala, the golden girl of Philippine tennis, might not be as free as everyone thought. So, what exactly did Federer know? And why did he choose to speak? Now, Federer didn't give names. He didn't point fingers. But his words presented a picture that was impossible to ignore. According to sources close to the event, what Federer was alluding to was the immense control that numerous interests had over Alice's career. This wasn't just about coaching tips or career guidance. This concerned a young athlete who had little freedom due to a maze of sponsorship duties, federation requirements, and financial commitments. What we know is as follows. Early in her career, Alice secured contracts with big sponsors, but these agreements had conditions. Expectations for appearance, social media responsibilities, and tournament scheduling that prioritized corporate publicity over her own growth. She was an extremely valued product. Then there's the Federation. The Philippine Tennis Association had invested significantly in Alice's career. They funded her training. They supported her travel. But there are expectations associated with investment. She was doing more than just defending herself in court. She was speaking on behalf of a whole sports program that depended on her success to support its funding. There was no subtle pressure. Additionally, the coaching scenario that sparked curiosity. Several coaching changes in a brief amount of time. Finding the appropriate match was the official narrative each time, but people with knowledge of the circumstances offered an alternative. Coaches who resisted the timetable and put Ala's long-term growth ahead of immediate outcomes were short-lived. The message was unambiguous. Get in line or risk being replaced. Federer was no stranger to this. He has seen youthful talent burn out under such circumstances. He had witnessed bright careers ruined by a lack of initiative rather than a lack of talent. And he noticed warning indications when he examined Ala's circumstances. So he said something. But speaking up came with penalties. The question now wasn't only about what was happening to Alex Eala. It was about whether Federer had the right to expose it, if his worry was real, or whether he'd just made a young player's life immensely more complicated. And the internet has opinions, a lot of them. The outcry was immediate and strong. Filipino fans, fiercely protective of their tennis star, filled social media with defenses of Aya. They accused Federer of overstepping, of speaking about a situation he didn't fully comprehend, of using his platform to generate controversy where there was none. Roger Federer needs to stay in his lane. One viral tweet read, "Alex Eala is doing just fine. We don't need a retired player trying to create drama." Others, though, had a different perspective. Federer rarely speaks without cause, according to tennis analysts. He was probably telling the truth if he was worried enough to make a public statement. They mentioned similar cases. Young players who were destined for greatness only to flame out under the weight of external pressure. Reddit threads analyzed every facet of Aya's professional life. Her tournament schedule, coaching adjustments, and sponsorship agreements all showed trends that were difficult to ignore. According to the data, a player may have been pushed too hard in an attempt to achieve outcomes that would please everyone but the person holding the racket. Forums for women's tennis discussed the wider ramifications. Aya wasn't the only one involved. It concerned a system that views young female athletes as commodities, puts marketability ahead of mental health, and evaluates success in terms of sponsorship money rather than individual development. A few fans demanded openness. They desired to speak with Aya directly. Was she content? Did she feel in control of her career? Or was Federer right to be worried? But Aya stayed silent. No statement, no social media post, nothing. And that quiet said 1,000 words. The dispute had become uncontrollably heated. What started as a simple quip from Federer had become a full-blown debate about power, control, and the hidden price of being a young star in professional tennis. This wasn't just about one player anymore. This was about the entire system. Alex Aya's story became a mirror. It reflected uncomfortable truths about how the tennis world treats its young stars, especially young women, the pressure to perform, the sponsorship obligations, the federations that see players as national assets rather than individuals with dreams and limits. Consider it. How many teenage females enter professional tennis with stars in their eyes only to burn out before they hit 25? How many promising careers end not because of injury or lack of talent, but because the system breaks them. The mental health crisis in women's tennis isn't new. Players like Naomi Osaka and Simona Halep have spoken openly about the toll that constant pressure takes. But Aya's situation highlighted something else: the lack of autonomy. When you're being funded by federations, managed by agencies, and sponsored by global brands before you're even old enough to vote, how much of your career is actually yours? Who's making the decisions? And who gains when you succeed or when you break? Federer's comment drove these questions into the open. It made folks uncomfortable because the answer isn't easy. Yes, support systems are necessary. Young players need funding, coaching, and guidance. But when does support become control? When does guidance become exploitation? The tennis world didn't have good answers, and that was the problem. Women's tennis, for all its progress, still issues with how it treats its young stars. The sport glorifies them, profits from them, but rarely protects them. Aya's story wasn't unique. It was just the latest example of a pattern that keeps repeating. There will also be more Alex Ealas and young players torn between their aspirations and everyone else's expectations until the system is changed. So where does this leave us, and where does it leave Alex Eala? The tennis community awaited a response, an explanation, or anything that would make sense of what had just transpired in the days after Federer's remark. However, the quiet persisted. Federer didn't walk back his statements. He also didn't go into detail. He'd spoken what he needed to say, and he let it stand. Some respected him for it. He was chastised by others for dropping a bomb and then turning to leave. In the meantime, Alex Eala carried on with her plans. She attended her subsequent competition. She performed. She gave the cameras a smile. However, those who paid close attention noticed something different. A level of caution that had not previously existed. Maintaining a cautious distance during her interviews. Was Federer the target of her ire? Feeling thankful? Trapped? No one was aware. Perhaps that was the purpose. Perhaps the fact that we were unable to tell was proof of Federer's warning. A young player who was so well managed and controlled that even her emotions needed to be carefully controlled. The Philippine Tennis Association released a brief statement defending their support of Eala and emphasizing their commitment to her development. It was professional. It was vague. It answered nothing. Sponsors stayed quiet. Coaches stayed quiet. Everyone went back to business as usual. But something had shifted. The conversation had started. People were paying attention now, not just to Alex Eala's results, but to her well-being. Not just to her wins, but to whether she was actually okay. And maybe that's what Federer wanted all along. Not to destroy her career or create scandal, but to make people look closer, to question the system, to care about the person, not just the player. The truth is, we may never know the full story of what's happening in Alex Eala's career. We may never know if Federer was right to speak up or if he overstepped. But we know this. The conversation matters because tennis needs its young stars. But it needs them whole. It needs them healthy. It needs them to have careers that last, not just careers that burn bright and fast. Alex Eala is talented enough to be great. The question is whether the system will let her be. Roger Federer's words opened a door that tennis didn't know it needed opened. Alex Eala's story became bigger than simply one player. It became a reflection of how the sport treats its rising stars, especially young women carrying the hopes of entire nations. Whether you think Federer was right to speak up or believe he crossed a line, one thing is undeniable. This conversation is far from ended. The real question isn't just what happens to Alex Eala next. It's what happens to every young player navigating the impossible balance between dreams and expectations, between support and control. Because if we don't address it now, we'll be having the same conversation about another talented teenager in a few years. What do you think? Was Federer out of line, or did he just say what everyone else was thinking? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay updated on the biggest stories and controversies affecting women's tennis, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This narrative is still developing and you won't want to miss what happens next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next.